I'm Cindy Boxer, and you are listening to the Fiber Artist Podcast, where we chat with artists, makers, and creatives who work with fiber, get to know their stories, how they came upon their fiber practice, and more about the person behind the work. I'm so excited to share today's episode with you. I got the chance to speak with the wonderful Lauren Williams. She's a mom of 3 boys running her very successful art business from her garage studio in Texas. She was so open about sharing her journey from working in production to owning a yoga studio to running and managing her art business today. She's a true inspiration. Lauren's work has been in a bunch of high-end magazines and popular TV shows like Fixer Upper with Joanna Gaines, and just recently on the set of one of my favorite shows on Netflix, Queer Eye. But real quick, before we get into it, are you a maker looking for high-quality rope, fibers, and looms? You can get 15% off your next order at neromastudio.com and at marymakerstudio.com.au with the code TheFiberArtistPodcast. And one last thing, I have a big favor to ask of you. If you haven't already, please, if you're enjoying this podcast, head over to iTunes or the Apple Podcast app and please rate and review the podcast so more people can find it. Okay, and without further ado, here is Lauren Williams. Hi, Lauren. Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today.
Hi, Cindy. Thanks for having me.
Of course. I mean, we haven't chatted, I think, in maybe 4 years. So
I feel it was over Instagram, like 4 years ago.
Yeah.
Has it been that long?
It has. Well, because I was thinking about like when I was living in Jersey City and just starting out, and like, I mean, it was a little bit after I started out, but yeah, I think we like had one phone call and we've just been keeping in touch over Insta.
I was asking you about your yarn.
Yeah. So it's been a while. It's been a while.
Yarn.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a while. So anyway, thank you so much for taking the time. I know you're crazy busy. So we'll just get into it. I mean, if you can just kind of take me way back and tell me a little bit about your childhood and like we're going way back, girl. Because I want to like see like if there were like little seeds that brought you to now where you are. So tell me kind of about childhood, where you grow up, how you grew up, siblings, and then just take me into like how you eventually found your fiber practice.
Yeah. Okay. Great. So I'm from Texas. I was born and raised in Texas, and I'm currently in Texas, but so lived in North Dallas for a while. My mom and dad are both entrepreneurs. My dad's an architect. My mom has a legal business. And so I grew up, I'm the oldest of 3. I've got a little brother and a little sister, oldest of 3. And we grew up basically watching our parents hustle and, build their own respective companies and come together over dinner to talk about, the business and how things were going. And, I think little did they know they were feeding, the drive and the spirit of entrepreneurs at that table as we were little kids. My sister runs her own business. My brother's on track. He's young. He's about 7 years younger. So he's pulling up the rear, kind of doing the same thing.
Nice. And
then for me, I always call my husband and I serial entrepreneurs. This is like our 3rd business that we've started and run together. So, I grew up as, like I said, the oldest of 3, very aware of my surroundings. My dad, as an architect, had a great eye and was constantly working on mostly the landscape of the house, the surrounding area of our home. And my mom, great eye as herself. And I was just constantly in a home that I felt very inspired by.
Wow. Yeah.
I don't think interior design or art was anything that they knew they were cultivating, but that's where I thrive is in an artistic, creative environment, and in a space that feels well designed, and
totally.
put together.
Yeah.
So I feel like those are all little bits and nuggets of my childhood that really started to cultivate me kind of executing my dream, which is running my own business that happens to be circled around art. And with an entrepreneurship, drive, I think that using social media to really market myself and sell my art was really just kind of a culmination, like I said, of my parents and the way that they were running their own business.
Yeah, definitely. So when you, So tell me, so like during high school, were you taking art classes when you went to college? I don't know if you went to school like after, but so take me through that.
Yeah. So, in high school, I definitely took art class and I loved art class. Never thought about pursuing art ever.
Who does, right?
I mean, people do though. And I look back and I'm like, man, that would have been a great idea.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think if you like grow up in New York or maybe even LA, like it seems like maybe a viable thing. But like most of us who live in any other state don't think of it as anything we can pursue.
Right. Yeah. Agreed. So then I went to OU in Oklahoma. So I grew up in Dallas, graduated and went to school in Oklahoma, which felt like so far north.
Oh yeah.
It was like, it's going to be cold up there. And I went to tour the campus, like in the fall, and there was actually like the season of fall.
Yeah. Like and then winter.
Changing and there was wind blowing the leaves. And I was like, this place is gorgeous, So I went to OU and I did, marketing and public relations.
Okay.
Actually, I started out doing like psychology, and then it was like, what degree can I do that does not require math? And they're like, oh, journalism. Like you could do something in journalism.
Yes.
Like sold. Let's do that. So I did that, and then I did a Spanish minor because I really wanted to travel. So I lived in Spain for a year, a summer, and then a semester, and then extended my stay.
Nice. That's awesome.
Yeah, I did like kind of a victory lap 5-year graduating, college thing, which my parents were very cool with, surprisingly. So I did that. And then after graduation, my mom had moved to LA. Okay. So after graduation, I was like, I don't want to go back to Texas. I'm going to LA. And that's where I lived for almost a decade. It's where I met my husband. It's where we got married, had babies. And
nice.
And it was really that I started figuring out things that I enjoyed. I started doing event production for and you stop me if I'm going on too far. But
no, this is all of it. I want to know all of it.
Okay. So I started doing event production. I was like sitting at a bar in Manhattan Beach, eating a sushi bar. And some guy was sitting next to me and I ended up talking to him, and he basically did event production for like Victoria's Secret, like big, large scale events, out in LA, Nickelodeon, Kids Choice, all these like big red carpet sort of events. And he needed someone to help him. So I just started like a PA, I was an assistant, and I would run around doing all the things. And that is kind of where I found my niche of loving to design things. So I would do like the backstage, like the green room, where all the talent would hang out. And, I got to get my hands dirty with, floral arrangements and lighting and furniture and decor. And I was just like, oh, and I think in that I really figured out I love large scale art. It just is such a statement when you walk into these big spaces. And so I just started being drawn to like large scale art when I was designing like the green room backstage for talent.
Yeah.
And not that I knew I was going to do anything with it. I just knew I loved it. And I did that for a while. And then as a lot of people do in production, you get totally burned out, and kind of it's a very, the entertainment industry is a very cutthroat industry.
And the hours are crazy, and they don't like let you really eat so much when you're on the production staff. Like everyone else has crafties and you're just like going and going and going.
Yeah.
Like no breaks.
Really, so so it was like, who's first on set? That's me, 4 a.m., last to leave, 2 a.m., and then run home, take a nap, change, and then be back to work. And I ran myself just ragged.
Yeah.
I'm a type 1 diabetic.
Oh, no, really? I did not know this.
Not eating on a regular basis, not checking my blood sugar, not, resting, not taking time to go to the doctor.
Yeah.
None of these things. Like I didn't have time for that.
Yeah. Did you have kids at this point, or this is probably pre-kids, right?
Single, pre-kids. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Definitely a different life and a different Lauren. Yeah. But all the parties, all the stuff. And so I finally ran myself just into the ground, and I had to take a break. And I mean, I literally ended up on the floor, and the ambulance was called. I was, unconscious, just wasn't taking care of myself.
Was this on set?
This was
Like,
not on set.
okay.
I had come home and I was by myself, living by myself. I was actually living in my mom had a house, but she was in Dallas. Anyway, she was traveling a lot. So I was at home by myself, passed out probably 2 a.m., 3 a.m. in the bathroom, just really, really low blood sugar.
Yeah.
And mom had flown in, like by the grace of God, had flown in, came to the house, walked into the bathroom and found me. 911. I woke up, to paramedics around me, and it was just this life-changing experience. I was like,
hello, wake up call.
Life is a thin line of life and death. It's right there.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So that was where it was almost like such a fear of going back to work. I had this like panic. If I go back to work, I'm not going to be able to take care of myself. And so I had to quit like almost immediately. Even just walking into my office to get my stuff, I had like this panic attack.
Oh.
It was super crazy. So I ended up moving to my own apartment and found a job at a yoga studio because I was like, listen, I want to take yoga and take care of myself, but I can't afford yoga because I just quit my job.
Yeah.
So maybe I'll work the front desk. So I started working the front desk of a yoga studio. And this is where I started being an assistant for the owner of the studio. She had a clothing line and wrote books and had DVDs, and just another small business entrepreneur that I was just like soaking in things. And like my whole history of work is always taking jobs for small businesses with passionate entrepreneurs. I'm just addicted and drawn to that lifestyle and that passion.
Right. That's amazing. Did she sort of become a mentor for you?
No.
It was like what not to do.
So bad. But she was not a mentor, but she was somebody that I saw. I do not want to live that life.
No, that's good. That's important too.
Those are, I guess those could be opposite mentors that are very important. But working at that studio is where I met my husband. And he was also a producer. He did television and film production. So he had gotten to almost an identical situation in his life where he was working on an island in the Caribbean filming this like pirate show where they were pretty much living off like rum and, like that's probably it.
Yeah, totally.
To work. And he ended up with like, just very, very sick and ended up coming home like, I need to take a break. So he also came home from this trip to take a break and started doing yoga and spin, which was at this studio. That's where we met. That's where we started dating. And he decided, I'm not going back to production. I'm going to start my own, he actually franchised this yoga and spin studio.
Okay.
And as his girlfriend, he was like, hey, do you want to help me run the front desk? Or, you want to help me run this business? You can do the front desk. Well, blah, blah, blah. So people thought we were crazy. Why would you go into business with your boyfriend?
Oh, right. Because you're not even like legally bound in any way that,
fresh dating. Like, what's your middle name?
And how old were you?
25.
Oh my God. That's so young. Like when you think back, are you like, how did I even have I don't know, how did I even have the balls to do it, Well,
and that's the thing. I don't think I was so naive. I didn't think. He was like, do you want to help me run this business? I'm like, a small business? Hell yeah. I love that stuff. Let's do it. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So we moved to Silver Lake out in LA and bought a auto body shop. And we converted this auto body shop into this gorgeous yoga studio on one side and a spin studio on the other. It was kind of at the beginning of that spin phase, or fast, which is still going very strong and great. So we would teach yoga, and then after yoga, you would take spin first to warm up your body, get the muscles going, burn the calories, and then you would go over into the yoga studio and just kind of elongate the muscles and really start to build some tone. And anyways, that's a whole other conversation.
That sounds that sounds really ideal though, physically. Actually, when I think about spin class, I'm like, wait a minute, how did they have the energy to do yoga afterward? But that's pretty awesome.
On the ground breathing, like
you're like in shavasana for an hour.
Exactly. Or child's pose.
Yeah.
Either one. Yeah, we're just recovering.
Totally.
So that was the first business that my future husband and I had to do together.
Nice.
Was awesome. Then, marriage, babies, and we were like, we cannot continue. I was teaching like 5 to 6 classes a day up until like the day I had the first baby.
Oh, wow. Baby. Oh, so you were teaching.
Oh, yeah. I was teaching spin, yoga, running the business, marketing the business, cleaning the toilets, making sure we had paper towels, training the teachers. It was everything. It was a small business,
Yeah. Wait, so at what point did you get your yoga certification? Were you doing yoga while you were in production? And
no, I wasn't. I was not. I knew I needed to, and I loved it, but I wasn't doing it. I basically, once I started working the front desk at that studio, I got to do free yoga training.
Okay. Oh, that's awesome. Nice.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was great. So, so that was the first business. We were doing that, and then a baby came, and it was like, how are we going to take care of this baby and run this business? We just had so much going on, and you do not make enough money as a yoga studio owner. Maybe you do. I don't know. We were not to where I could hire somebody to watch my kid.
Right.
So he would hang out, in the office while I would teach a yoga class, and then we would switch, and that's just what we did, and that's still what we do, but for a different business.
Yeah.
So after a long time, or after about a year of doing that, we ended up selling the studio, and I was like, I'm from Dallas. I've got a network of friends and people there, because the option for him to go back into production just seemed like not a great idea.
Yeah.
In the entertainment industry, we basically wouldn't ever see him, he'd be on set, and, it was just not the life that we really wanted to live.
Yeah.
We loved being together. And, we loved our little baby family that we just started, and it was like, okay, let's move to Dallas. It's cheaper, and some people we could maybe we'll open a studio there. We were just kind of figuring things out. So we moved to Dallas. He started bartending. I started working as a secretary for my dad's construction company.
Which I'm sure you're like, when can I stop doing this?
Loved it so much. It was great because I could bring the baby, and I was
that's nice. That's really nice. Yeah.
Yeah, it was nice. So we did that for a little bit, and then we got pregnant with our second baby, and I was like, listen, you can't bartend anymore. I told him, you can't bartend anymore. We gotta figure something out. So we decided to start our own production company. We had met a bunch of people who also had small businesses, and they needed content. They were like, we need a commercial, or we need, something for online, or we need to, and James was like, I'm a producer. That's like my second, I can do that for you.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So we got a huge project where we were buying we did a gigantic media buy. So not only did we make the commercial, but we also bought the media, to actually put it on television. And so that media buy and the production helped us kind of launch our production company.
Right.
So again, business number 2, together, which was for us. We were hustling, working from our bedroom. I created a website online, and I was like, we can do that. We can make this happen, and came up with a name and a website, and made some little business cards. And we were hustling out to the ad agencies and small businesses, and just creating content. Mm-hmm. And then we learned that in Dallas, the budgets for creating content are a lot smaller than the budgets for creating content out in LA.
Right.
But the work is the exact same. So we were like, wow, we are working so hard to make not as much money as we would be making if we were living in LA, obviously.
Right.
Totally. I mean, obviously cost of living is higher and all of those things, but it just felt a little sour to be hustling and doing what we were doing to make, it was just very difficult.
Yeah.
So he looked into going back to LA, and we basically moved to the burbs when I got pregnant with the third baby. And he was flying out Monday morning to LA to work for the week. He was actually director. He was directing. He was the head producer for a new studio out in LA. So he was top of his game, doing awesome. And I was home with 3 kids living in the burbs, driving a minivan. Yeah. I mean, I was like, all the things I said I would never do. I'd never move back to Texas. I'd never live in the burbs. I'd never drive a minivan.
And how old are the kids at this time?
The oldest had just started kindergarten. That's why we moved to the burbs.
All right. Good schools. Yeah.
So we had 6, 4, and newborn.
Oh, good Lord. It makes me tired thinking about it. Every time I see you on Instagram with 3 boys, it's 3 boys, right? Mm-hmm. I'm like, oh, sweet Jesus. How is she?
1 girl, right?
I have 2 boys.
You have 2 boys?
I have 2 boys.
I think it was, okay, yes. Okay, well, so then
I know that when you have 3 boys, it's like having 9 boys. because having 2 boys is like kind of like having 6 boys.
Yeah, girl. It just don't stop.
I don't know how you do it. We'll talk. We'll get into that. Okay, so anyway, so your husband's traveling all week. You're single momming it like completely.
Yeah, I felt like I was a single mom in the burbs with 3 kids, and I was going bonkers.
Yeah.
You know, I was lonely. I was, I didn't know people. I was in this giant. It felt like a giant house because we're in the burbs, and you can get big houses in the burbs, especially compared to Dallas and LA. So I was like in this big house with these kids, and I would basically put the kids down for either naps or put them down for bed. And it's not like I had my husband to make sure I paid attention to him.
Yep.
He was gone. So I would be like either spend time on Instagram or I'd be out in the garage, which we had a 3-car garage. Nice. So I basically converted it into kind of like my studio. And I had been making these tapestries kind of for like friends and, sharing them on a little bit here and there on Instagram. But basically living in this house, I had all these giant walls, and my taste for art and my budget for art really did not align. So I was like, I'm just going to make all this stuff myself,
Yeah.
It was a rental. We're living in a rental. So I was like, I'm not spending money on this. I can just make this stuff. I'll make it. We'll just make it all work, whatever. And I started making these giant, large scale pieces, and I would do it, I'd work till like 3 a.m. because I just like felt so like confined to being a mom by myself without my husband. I was just like, so me going into the garage, although it sounds very confining, was where I found my freedom. Yeah. I was just making whatever I could think of, and I was doing giant and I found like this pride and this excitement, and then of course I started sharing it on Instagram, and the outpouring of just like attention and excitement and this is amazing was huge.
Totally. I remember that.
You do?
I feel like I was there for like the first few, at least like you had maybe like 10 tapestries or at least 10 fiber art photos in your feed. And like, that's, I think, around the time when I found you. So yeah. So tell me like, what brought you to want to create a tapestry? Like, do you remember seeing anything or, what inspired it in the first place?
So I had been seeing macrame, like I had been seeing that, and I was like, wow, these are super cool. I loved the texture that it brought, and I thought that was super cool. But I was like, you know what? I do not have the time to learn how to do knots. Like I don't know how to do any knot, and I don't have time to figure this out.
Yeah.
That was my thought, because I had this giant wall, and I was like, I want a piece of art, and I could see the art, and I was like, I would go, and I was like, maybe I could just go buy a canvas and I'll paint something.
Right.
But large canvases for the size that I wanted are expensive.
They are. They totally are.
So I was like, well, okay, what if, and I literally just like started going down this hole of like, well, what if I like made, because I kept thinking, what if I made my own canvas? Like I could get some fabric and I could like stretch it and maybe paint it, and then it's like a canvas.
Mm-hmm.
I started thinking of budget friendly ways to like create art. It's really where it all came from. And then seeing these macrame pieces, I was like, these are neat, I do not know how to do that. So I literally was like, well, what if I just got a bunch of yarn and just tied it to like a wooden dowel and just let it hang to the size of a canvas, basically like, this giant canvas size. And so I did. I went to like walk to the aisles of like a craft store. I went to like Home Depot, and I just started looking for stuff, and I brought it home, and it was at nighttime after the kids were asleep that I just started like kind of putting stuff together and put it on the wall. And James grew up in Santa Fe. He loves art. He studied art in college. He wanted to be like an art dealer, ironically.
Interesting. It all comes together.
Right? It's so funny. Like he literally grew up in this man's, these friends with these kids who like his one dad, would trade houses for paintings. Like James was like, so you just traded that painting for that airplane? Like, damn. I want to do this.
Yeah.
like how do I do this job? So he went to school to like study art history, and by a certain turn of events he ended up in production, but it all started coming together, and I started making these art pieces. I would put it on the wall, and he would come in and be like, well, that's super cool. And I was like, I feel like it's one thing when the women are like, oh, I love it, but then when like the men are like, I I totally love this. You
Yes.
know, there was something that I was like, okay, wait, God, really? And it made me feel really like, okay, I got something here. Like,
Yeah.
and then I was getting messages from like husbands or boyfriends. I want to buy this for my girlfriend or my wife. And I was like, when the men are like pursuing it, I was like, we're doing okay here. So I did my first piece, and it was like I created basically the canvas, and I was like, I could use paints, and I could probably use some like fabric dye or something to put a design on it. And that's where it all started, just working in the backyard while the kids were playing in the yard, and I was just like, making a huge mess, and what am I doing? And made my first piece, put it on the wall, and James was like, "This is super cool. I love it." And I was like, "You do?" And that's when snapped a picture, posted it to Instagram, and then it was just like, I want one. Where did you get this? Where did you find this? How much is this? And
that's amazing.
I was like, we could start a business. We should do this.
You can feel it like right away, right? Like the immediate sort of energy around it and excitement about it.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
It's so cool.
Yeah.
So so you go from your first tapestry to like, I'm assuming you get a few commissions. Did you go like right off the bat? Did you just start doing commissions only, or how did it?
So yeah, basically I would just start getting messages from friends or friends of friends. And then eventually it became people that I had no idea. How did you find me? And I would just like when the kids were asleep and while James was out of town, I would just work in the garage and, make these commissions. And it took about a year of me doing like the commissions to figure out, okay, this is kind of backwards because instead of me getting out there to just create, I'm working to create someone else's vision, and it's really difficult to implement them, their color schemes when I'm like, I do not like that at all. I would have done this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's when it kind I switched, and I thought, you know what I'm going to do is, because then I would create a commission and they'd be like, ooh,
oh God, that's the worst. Oh, that's the worst.
Like, I just like slaved over this, and you're just like, oh my gosh. So you're like, okay, I'll make another one. So I would make another one, but then I'd be like, what do I do with this one? Right. And so I kind of started collecting pieces, and I was like, I would post it on Instagram and be like, hey, this one's available that measures this by this, and these are the colors, sold, and I was like, sweet, and so I'm shipping it and making the other one. And that just, snowballed into, I was basically spending more time answering emails and replying and packaging and shipping than I was actually making the art.
Right. I find it so interesting that it is the quote unquote failures of the pieces that the commission pieces that were turned down that actually planted the seeds for you to change your business model. There were so many failures that really were the directions for me, not having enough money to buy art, being broke and not being able to buy a canvas or paint. I was just like, okay, well then maybe we'll do this instead. That's a very good point. Yeah, really interesting. Okay, so then you ended up. So I guess at that point you realized you're changing your business model. Did you completely stop taking commissions, or were you just limiting them, or how did you end up evolving?
So this is so funny because the first time I basically had created about 10, maybe 8 to 10 pieces. And it probably took me, 3 months or 4 months to do it, between kids and single mom in it and all this stuff.
Right.
And I created, on top of creating customs. Cause I would get the customs and I would create those, but then I would also, cause I'm also building them all by myself. I'm doing all the things, so it took me quite a bit of time to gather about like 8 to 10 pieces, I think it was. Mm-hmm. And that's when I was like, you know what, I'm going to do, I think, who it was? It was Jen Harrison from Flea Market Fab. Mm-hmm. She would do these online flash sales where she would be like, okay, first person to comment.
I remember. Yeah.
Email and sold gets it. So I was like, all right, Jen, I see you.
Yeah.
So basically I took pictures of all my pieces on this horrible, wall. It wasn't even a white wall. It was like light brown or something. It was so bad. But I took a picture of all the pieces and I measured them and I wrote the notes. And so I basically on Saturday when James was home, I locked my door in the bedroom. I sat on my bed and I was like, I had announced I'm going to do this flash sale and any of these pieces first, blah, blah, blah. So I sit down And I'm like, it was there was no stories back then. It was, I don't even know I guess hashtags were a thing. I'm not even sure. But basically I just sat down and I was like posting, and I'd be like, this is the dimensions. These are the colors. First person to comment with your email, and the word sold gets it.
Mm-hmm.
And I had eight or 10 pieces, and I was just sitting, and it was like I couldn't even post the pictures fast enough.
That's so amazing.
Like, sold, and I was just like screaming in the bedroom, and James kept peeking in, and finally after the 10th one, he comes in with champagne and like,
that's so awesome.
So every single one, and I was freaking out. It's funny, I think, as an artist, and I don't know if you can relate, but in your mind, you're like, anybody can do this. I can do it, so anybody can do it. So for me, I really did not value my art at all.
Right.
I was like, you can have, I'm sorry, I messed up on this one. Right. You can have it.
Just take it. Yeah.
Just take it. Here, I'll ship it. I'll pay for shipping.
Oh, good Lord.
No. You get it, you're just like, take it. So the fact that happened was like, it really blew my mind. I was like, okay. And I don't even remember what I was selling them for, but it was not very much. Mm-hmm. But that money was just, all of a sudden it just appeared, and I made it.
Yeah.
I feel like I just made this money, and I was like, this is really awesome. So that was like, okay, now what's the next step? And so I did that a couple more times, and they just kept selling out. And then I was like, you know what? It would be a heck of a lot easier if I just had a website, and I could just post them on the website, and if people want them, they can buy them, and I don't even have to deal with the PayPal and the email back and forth, and your PayPal didn't work, and So I got on Squarespace one night and stayed up till 2 a.m. trying to teach myself how to build a website.
Yeah,
and I just did that. And, things just started continuously rolling and improving. I look back and I'm like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe, blah, 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 where we are now. But all of those steps were so necessary,
Totally, yeah. So at that point, James was still working. Was he still commuting back and forth?
He was. And we got to the summer, and my mom lives in Malibu, mm-hmm. and she had a guest house. So I was like, what if we just come out for the summer? I'll pack the kids up. We'll come out for the summer, and we'll live out there so that, we'll see you.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
Flying back and forth. And the kids would love it and blah, blah. So we did that. But before we actually flew out there, my commissions were just stacking up, and I was having stress panic attacks,
yeah.
I was like, I'm saying no to money. I'm saying no to these projects. Why would I do that?
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm just going to ship all my stuff out to Malibu. And my mom has this tent, kind of parking tent structure that she would park her car under. Mm-hmm. I was like, I could probably turn that into my studio, for a month or so. And that was a big turning point. So I spent the month on the beach with my kids. And I was just I don't know about you, but I get to California and the air, it's
yeah.
It's not what you think it is, the air, but I'm smelling the air.
No, I love it. I love it. I don't, I don't feel the smog. I don't see the smog everyone talks about, it exists only over LA proper, I guess, because everywhere else is beautiful.
Well, it's not the smog, and it's not the marijuana either.
Oh,
but
yeah.
It's the ocean air for me. I smell it, and I'm just infused with energy and oh, we could do this and I could make this. And so I just spent the summer just making pieces and building the website. So I actually at this point hired a Squarespace website person.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, you know how to do this, right? Could you just make me a rad website with a store on it? And I'll, you do the things, and then I'll send you the pictures of the art, and you put it on the website. And we still work together. I don't know how
that was
awesome. Years ago. And he's still my web guy. He is awesome. I love him. His name's Evan.
Nice.
He's great. So in August, I launched my first online collection after that summer, and it was my Malibu collection.
Oh, I don't know.
Awesome. And I'm like, I don't know.
No, I think that works. That totally works.
It did. And while I was in Malibu, my mom lives in she lives in an old 1950s house,
mid-century. Awesome.
Yeah. It needs to be redone. It's all original, but it's so cool. I just love it. And she's in between all these mega mansions,
I love that though.
She's not. But her neighbors are Pink and Kid Rock and Matthew McConaughey. And, you go down to the beach and you're like, oh, hey. Chris Martin? Like, no,
I know you.
Yeah.
You don't know me, but I know you.
One day I was one of my friends was like, "Hey, there's this open house down the street. It's this beautiful house. Do you want to come look at it?" And I'm like, "Sure." So I go with her to we just walk in this house. Happens to be Kid Rock's house. And it was this just ridiculously cool house, and he was selling it, and the real estate agent was there. And I was like, "If you ever need a piece of art, I'm right down the street and I'm making these tapestries." And, I was showing him pictures on my phone, and he was like, "I need 3 of them, like one here, one there, and one in the guest room." And I was like,
to stage places. That's so amazing.
I was like, I'll be right back. Don't and I'm like running, and I like sent him some pictures of some pieces. And so we hung them, and I got to take some gorgeous photos. And that was kind of like,
was that in Kid Rock's house? Or did you, oh my God. Yeah. That's amazing.
Kid Rock was not there. He didn't live there anymore,
but still, whatever. Like, what a staging opportunity.
It was and the house was so ridiculous. And that really sparked, okay, this is what I need. I need to be staging my art in rad houses.
Yeah.
Because one, it elevates where your art should be living,
Yeah.
I was staging it in my garage and over my couch in my living room in Frisco, Texas. And it was fine. I was making it work.
Yeah.
Like, to see like the waves crashing out the window and like this gorge, you're just like,
totally aspirational.
Yeah, this is a good business plan. So that's what really started launching me, just hustling to reach out to designers, like, "Hey, love your designs. Super cool. I create art. If you ever need an art piece, let me know." And so that's kind of where I started. Like, I need to be working with designers, which also led to the next kind of business shift of only taking commissions from designers or art consultants.
Yep.
Because I would hustle over these commissions and go back and forth with these people. Like, well, I want it to match my couch, but I want it to be this, and you're going back like, okay. But I want it to be this size, but not this, and you're like, I recommend, can you help me? Can you tell me what you think? And so I would do all the things, and I would do, and then I would send it to them, and they would take a picture with the lights off at nighttime. And I'm like, does it look, I don't know, does that look good? And I just, worked for a month on this piece that I think is ridiculously cool. And I'm like, it looks horrible on that wall.
Well, and not everybody knows how to take a good picture.
Oh, exactly. I started like, okay, when the lights are on, turn
lighting.
The lights on.
It's so important.
Don't, not from here, not from there. We did all the things, and I got some good pictures for some, but it really was like, what, it would be super beneficial to work with these designers who know, who are gonna take the great pictures and who could appreciate me promoting them and them promoting me. And it just was just different steps of understanding how to build and promote and grow.
Right. Very smart.
It helped.
How did you find the designers to work with? Instagram?
Yeah. I feel like all I do, is like, oh my gosh, that house is great. I follow Architectural Digest, and I follow in, my domain and Apartment Therapy, and you're following all of these ridiculously cool interiors, and you look on the designer who is tagged, and or the photographer that was tagged. I would follow the photographers and the designers, and that's where I just started like cultivating that network.
Yeah.
And just emailing them all the time.
That's amazing. Is that how you got the Joanna Gaines?
Joanna
commission?
Gaines. Oh, that one was super cool. Okay, so Joanna Gaines, the way that it happened was I went to a party, and I met this girl named Lacey. Her name is Lacey Land, and she's the photographer and art director for Loloi Rugs.
Oh, okay.
Loloi.
Yep.
Loloi Rugs, and they're based in Dallas. And I went to a party where I met her. She's this photographer, and I'm like, girl, you know what? I could use some really good like portrait photos of me, because this is like not really working anymore. Like, I'll make you a tapestry if you come to my house and do do a photo shoot for me, And she was like, sweet, yeah. So she comes over to my garage. We open it up. I open a bottle of wine. We're like taking pictures, and we just hit it off. Become really good friends.
Nice.
Well, that was before Loloi decided to partner with Joanna Gaines, and before Loloi started to partner with Ellen DeGeneres, or all of the people to create these really and Justina
Blakely. Yeah, exactly.
So they started collaborating with them kind of after Lacey and I had made a connection, and Lacey was like, you need to meet this interior stylist. She's super, super nice. Her name is Hillary. You should meet her because maybe she could use your stuff in some of her like projects. She has a blog and and I was like, great, introduce me. So I emailed her. Like 3 months later, I get a reply email from Hillary and she's like, hey, so sorry. It's been a while, but I just took this job and I work for Magnolia. And I'm like, I don't know that, you know, and then I'm like, wait, and she was like, and my boss Joanna or Joe.
Oh my gosh, she wasn't even like Joanna Gaines.
My boss Joe was really interested in your work. She really loves your work, and we have a client who we need a piece for a client, but we need it like next week because we're shooting, and she just said we're shooting it in next week, and I was like. So I start like looking and I'm like doing a little bit of like internet stalking, like trying to figure out. And at this point I had hired my nanny to be my like studio manager. So I like run into the garage and I'm like, guess what? You know, I think Joanna Gaines, like JoJo, the tapestry, but she needs it like in 3 days. So I'm like, drop everything that you're doing. And I get on a call with this girl, Hillary, and she's telling me what she wants. And I'm like, okay, I just launched a collection this weekend and they all sold out. So I have no pieces. Damn. And she's like, well, so I'm like, so me and my studio manager, we're in the back and we're just like making and cutting and like doing all the things. And I ended up finishing it and just straight up driving it down to Waco.
Oh my God.
Drive when I dropped the kids off at school, drove to Waco, got to the house. I didn't meet JoJo, but I did. Hillary was there. She opens up this gorgeous house that they had just finished. And she's like, okay, we want to hang it right here. So I'm like, my husband's with me. James is with me. He's like filming. And I'm like, they're like, don't show any of these pictures yet because it's going to go on HGTV. I'm like, oh my God, you know. Yeah. So I'm like, I'll save the pictures. I won't use them. So I'm like hanging the piece, you know, and I'm like, it looks so cool. Can we see the rest of the house? You know?
Yeah, totally.
So I'm like taking pictures of like, oh my God, this is so cool. And it wasn't again for another like 6 months.
Oh God, it was that much earlier?
Yeah, until I even heard from Hillary. She sent me an email. She's like, hey, just want you to know your piece is going to be on this episode on January, you know, and we were like, okay, so my husband and I are like, put the kids to bed. It's like 8 o'clock. HGTV comes on. Fixer Upper's on. Like first shot. It's like bam. In the
it was really prominent in the episode. So and there's so many times
like standing there talking. Yes. You know, I mean, my name is not mentioned, and that's fine.
That's fine. But I think anybody who. I mean, I feel like everybody kind of knew anyway. You know,
everybody that knew me
so
knew.
Exactly.
You know.
Totally. That was awesome. It was such a win. I mean, because there's so many times where. Like, it's because in production and in TV, like, you just don't know what's going to get cut out. They totally could have just walked by it. Although, you were really lucky it was in the entrance.
It was in the entrance.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Who's a reality TV producer said that. He's like, babe, don't get excited because you never know. You know, it could be like a quick thing where you're like, it was there. But it was like they stood in the entryway and just chatted. And I was like,
you're like having a heart attack. That's so awesome.
It was a really cool experience.
That's
it was
so
neat.
Cool. Okay, so you mentioned how you had hired your nanny to be your studio manager. So at what point and how did you decide it's time to hire some help?
Yes, such a good question.
And how did you decide how you would manage your help and how do you delegate all of that now?
Yeah. So we're still back in this situation where my husband's working in LA, you know, Monday through Friday.
Oh, really?
So,
I thought he was working. I thought he was part of the Lauren Williams art team.
So basically what happened was he was working Monday through Friday. I'm like, this business is growing. It's going crazy. It's awesome. I need somebody to help me with the house because I don't have time to do laundry, dishes, or change the diapers from the hours of like 9 to 2. Like, give me a break. So I hired a nanny. She was incredible. And basically I would be like, hey, let's put the kids down for a nap so you could come help me in the garage.
Oh, nice.
And she was like, okay, great. So it kind of started that way where I trusted her enough with my kids that I was like, okay, they're either they're in school or they're napping or whatever, and the laundry's done and the kitchen's clean. Could you come help me just like package a couple tapestries real quick? And it started slowly that way. And then after a while, I was like, she needs to be full time because now, she would basically, I was getting, blog and I would sit and work. She would sit with my computer and what do you want to say? Answer emails and do commission projects and blog interview question. And it was just like my right hand and it became super great. So I was already paying her to be the nanny. So we didn't change anything. I just continued to pay her to be the nanny / now my studio manager is what I would call it. And then eventually I hired another nanny, like an actual nanny. And then we got to the point where my tapestry sales each month were equivalent to what my husband was bringing home.
Nice.
And I was like, babe, like what if we did this full time? Like what if you stopped going back and forth to LA and you came and worked with me? Like imagine what we could do then. And he was so exhausted. He missed the kids. He missed me. He was just like, that would be awesome. But it was a big, huge leap of faith for us because once you step out of the entertainment industry, it's very difficult to get in. So he's like, so I'm basically sacrificing my career right now. Like, you know what this means, right? Like, here you go, and we were like, we were very just prayerful about it because we were like we don't want to make a bad decision.
Of course.
I mean, we got 3 kids at this point. Like, this is kind of serious. So
well, I mean, it's a huge move. And yeah, like you said, leap of faith to be able to say we're going to do this. Yeah. I
mean, and the alternative was to move to LA, but I was like, we could never find a place where I could have a 3-car garage and do this. Like we should be here. And we had found a church that we really loved and we were making friends. And it was just like, I think that this is where we're supposed to be, and the industry it's a tough industry to be in for the entertainment. It's hard. It's hard to have a great family life. It's hard to have a great marriage when you are running that racket.
Totally.
So we were like, I think this is the right decision. We did it. It was very terrifying, but we felt like it. So we did it and he started helping me. And that is when basically the business went from here to like here, he's very smart. He knew he was structuring the business in a way like on the back end that I was like, great, that sounds like a great idea, do all that. He was basically he got to the point where he was managing all the commissions and the art consultants and the designers and the large scale hospitality projects. He was reaching out to hotels and like all of a sudden he was like, okay, I see you, babe. I see what you want to do. Let's do this. And I was like, great. And he'd be like, guess what? This one hotel, they want one tapestry for every room in their hotel. That's 144 tapestries. Do you think you can do that in 6 weeks? And I was like,
6 weeks?
I mean, it became like, we were hiring the people. It was like, let's do it. Like, oh my gosh, I'm terrified, but let's do it. know? And all of a sudden he took the business from like here to here.
Wow.
And I finally got to be the artist. I didn't have to think about this and that and all of the things. I just got to focus on the art and he took over the business. And it was just like, it was great. It was the solution that I needed because I couldn't handle a marketing director or a business or operations person, and that was him. So that was the biggest step that we took in the business was allowing him to really do what he's great at and allow me to do what I'm good at. That made a big difference.
That's amazing that like you have such a shared vision too that it's like, because
number 3.
No, that he could see exactly where it could go and make it that big. So that's amazing.
Well, and with him, I kept having this fear of like, is this crazy? Making our income based on my art. Like this sounds a little crazy. And he's like, I grew up in Santa Fe where literally everybody was an artist. Everybody was either making art or selling art. And that's just what you did. And they lived very well, honey. Like they were fine. It was definitely, I grew up where like, okay, you can be an artist, but he grew up in like, yeah, I'm an artist. It was a very different perspective that he continues to have to remind me. And thank goodness, because he's like, no, this is a legitimate career, honey. Like you are an artist and this is what we do. And I'm like, okay. Remind me next week when I have another breakdown.
Wow. That's amazing. So I don't know. I we don't have that much time, so I don't want to like talk too much about stuff that maybe people already know. But let's try to get to know you other than your fiber art. So what do you like to do outside of it? Do you have any time outside of working? Yes.
Outside of fiber art, I love to paint. I've started painting a lot.
Oh, I've noticed that.
I love painting. I like put the paintbrush to the canvas, like legit every time on a brand new canvas, and I just get covered with goosebumps. And I'm like, ironically, painting is my like creative outlet away from making the tapestries, which has become kind of interesting. But I really enjoy that. I love interior design. We're actually in the process of buying a home.
Oh,
We've been
congratulations!
Renting.
Yeah,
thank you. We're so excited. We've been renting for forever, so this will be our first home.
That's awesome.
It's a ranch style single level 1977 that needs to be like totally redone, but it happens to have a 5,000 square foot barn on the property.
God.
That's going to become my new studio.
That's the dream space. Oh my gosh, that'll be so amazing.
So that's become the new passion project, is Pinteresting like a crazy person.
Yeah. Oh my God, you're going to go crazy with interiors. I know it's going to be so awesome.
I'm really excited.
How far out are you from?
So we're hoping to
closing?
Put the offer in next week. Yeah,
okay.
we like getting everything buttoned up on the financial back end, and we're kind of like at the next step. No offers have been made on this house, which is a little terrifying. Wow. I think it really just takes the right person for this property.
Right.
But yeah, we're next week will be kind of make or break for us.
Will you have to do a lot of renovations?
Like gut it. Like
oh wow. Okay.
So it's fine because we're gonna live in in our rental for the next 9 to 12 months until we do it.
Okay.
So
okay.
Yeah, it'll be good.
Okay. So, let's go back to the business a little bit. So wait,
sure.
what do you find to be like the biggest challenge in what you're doing?
Ooh.
Like as far as what matches your personality and the things that you have to face as a business owner and as an artist.
Yeah, I think I'm going through it right now. The biggest thing for me is how to manage Instagram. I know it's like dun, dun, dun. But for me, it's knowing how to utilize it as a positive tool and not let it become a negative thing for me. Mm-hmm. I think it's so easy, to jump on Instagram and start to compare and start to think, oh, I didn't do this. And and where my shortcomings are, instead of using it for the positive. So really, really trying to manage myself in using this tool continuously as a good thing. Mm-hmm. Is really where I am at. And that's the biggest struggle that I'm having as an artist, because we and as a business owner, and as a mom and a wife and all of the things, Instagram is a fantastic tool, but it's definitely a slippery slope if you're not careful.
Yeah, it's a very slippery slope. Although I will say that I think most people would consider you like right at the top where everyone's comparing themselves to you. So I guess
Isn't that so funny?
Right? So I guess it's very interesting to hear that, guess what? Everybody
Totally.
feels it. We all feel it.
Man, yeah. I remember hearing somebody say exactly what I just said, and I think to me, they were at the top, and I was like, "Wait, for real?
You're like, how high does this go?"
Exactly, exactly, my friend. That is the problem. That's where I'm like, my husband will be like, "Well, how much is enough?"
Yeah.
He's like.
Yeah,
go ahead.
No, I was gonna say like that is the ultimate question. So like, at what point do we fully believe we're successful? Yeah. So that's a question for you, Lauren. What?
And I feel like that could be a whole podcast topic, my friend. Yeah. I love that. That's my favorite topics to talk about, because it's so easy to just for it to never be enough. It's like breathing. Is breathing is never enough. So we have to change our perspective. And so for me, what's enough right now has to be enough. Just today. The
moment.
I think that. Today, the moment, this day that we are given has to be enough, because who knows? I can't worry about tomorrow. Mm-hmm. I've actually been on a trajectory of going down with my followers, and whether that's Instagram bots being deleted, which is what people try to tell me to make me feel better. I think they're like, "Oh, it's about Instagram bots," and I'm like, I don't even whatever. Okay, but I have to be careful every time I look at my account and see that the number has gone down a little bit, to not be disappointed and be like happy for what's there.
Yeah. No, I think we all feel that. Although I will say that I think it, one way to put it in perspective, I found, is like to think, well, what are those likes giving me, and what are my followers giving me, other than like a little boost of confidence? Does it affect my sales? Does it affect my real life? Because usually it really doesn't. There's like it's not a parallel thing.
100%.
Yeah. So it's hard though.
It is. It's real. I mean, because we're people,
Yeah.
and you know, the approval of men, or you know, it feels good. It feels good when other people are liking you and commenting you and following you. It feels great, and that's, I think, what I finally realized. I was like, man, Instagram is all about making myself look awesome, and I'm kind of tired of making myself look awesome. You know, because every day I'm not. You know, and I feel I think we're genuine people. I think people have a tendency to need genuineness in their life. And whenever it doesn't feel genuine, because you're like, today we're doing this and it's awesome, you know, because you don't want to get on there and be like, so today sucks.
Yeah.
I mean, some people do.
Because everyone be like, quit your bitching. Quit your bitching, woman who's like doing so amazing. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So for me, my solution to that is just taking a break.
Yeah.
I'll legit delete the Instagram app off my phone for a minimum of 3 days. Like, I'm like, if I'm starting to feel this, I got to do a 3-day cleanse is what I tell myself. And I'll delete for 3 days.
That's awesome.
And it's a little scary because, yeah, you do come back and you're a little lower on the followers, but I think mentally I'm better.
Yeah, of course. Do you find, actually with Instagram that like the more followers you are getting, the more, well, I don't know how to question. Okay. So like I've found that the more followers I get, the more sort of private I feel. And I get weird about sharing now, like in stories, but I find that you have a really good balance in what you share, and like people, you know you have a family, and you know, we see your kids, and like, I don't know, how do you find a balance with that?
Well, I actually my husband told me about this article that he read in New York Times with this girl. She's like 13, and her parents were like, you can't get on Instagram, you can't do Facebook, you can't do any of the social media until you're 13, you know? And so she becomes 13, she gets her first Facebook account, and all of a sudden she notices on her parents' Facebook, her whole entire life has been documented.
Yeah,
she's mortified.
Yeah.
Did you see that?
Yeah.
She's mortified. And I'm like, you know, so it's so funny how we forget. We think about ourselves, but we don't think about others. So my big thing lately has been, you know, I'll share little bits and pieces of the kids and my family and my social, because I want people to remember that I'm actually a human.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
You know, but yeah, I do feel like I have to toe the line or draw the line between what comes into the house. I stay in the studio a lot, and I'll show off a lot in the studio, but once we come into the house, I try to be as thoughtful as I can with that.
Definitely. Do you have any like non-negotiables in your daily or weekly routine that you find keeps you healthy and gives you like a balance?
That's a great one. We quit at 3 o'clock.
Oh, that's
quit at 3 o'clock every single day. Yeah, my kids come home from school at 3, and we work out of my house. So I'm like, well, 3, it's quitting time.
Oh, that's
great.
And
I turn into mom. Yeah, it is. We work 9 to 3 every day. So, and we take a really quick short lunch because we know we're quitting at 3.
Yeah.
So that's been a big deal for me. I mean, if I'm on a hard deadline, sometimes maybe I'll work till 4, you know, when James will take care of the kids for a little bit, but, 3 o'clock's our quitting time. And that's kind of where I turn into mom and family. So I'm like, we're running this great business between the hours of 9 and 3. How lucky, you know,
yeah,
how cool
totally.
Is that? And it's doing just fine, you know?
Mm-hmm. I think,
so that's a really good.
Was there a fear? Was there a fear that you would fall behind?
Always.
Yeah. But then you realize, you know what? You get it done. It gets done in those hours. It's reasonable. You can be reasonable.
100%.
Yeah.
It happens. It all comes together.
Totally. I feel like I felt the same thing. But yeah, implementing like a hard stop time is really, really important.
Yeah. And I do have to be honest. I do let that hard stop bleed over though into like social, and I have to be careful with my phone, because you're like, well, I'm not in the studio.
Yeah.
You know? So that's, I struggle with that every day.
Yeah. Well, and then, you know, do you have an iPhone? And it tells you how much screen time you used last week or whatever. And mine will be like 6 hours a day. I'm like, what? No, I didn't.
Nuh-uh.
Like, and 4 of those are Instagram. Like, stop it. Stop. No, I didn't. Because I've been thinking that I've been conservative with my Instagram use lately. Like, I'll post and I'll kind of go away for a while, and I won't.
Yeah.
But apparently, no, I'm on yeah, it's crazy.
It really is crazy. And I have like my screen time ends at like 9 o'clock at night, and it doesn't start till 7. So if I wake up before 7 a.m., I can't use my phone. Like the screen will not turn on.
That's smart.
You can do that with iPhone apparently.
Yeah, you can.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I did it. I have no idea how to change it. Anyways.
Oh, that's good.
Now I'm stuck. Kind of screwed.
Nice. I should set mine. It's weird. It's like I'm scared to set it because I'm like, but what if, yeah.
No, girl, I know.
Okay, so here's a couple just like fun questions. Okay.
Okay.
If your 5-year-old self suddenly found themselves inhabiting your current body, what do you think your 5-year-old self would do first?
Oh, well, I have I have young kids, so I probably just do what they do. I guess I would go upstairs and play in the playroom with my kids. Oh, I've thought about that. Like how fun it would be to have that kid mentality and just play.
Yeah.
Like legit play with my 9-year-old and my 7-year-old. I would play.
Make believe, right? I've been watching my kids make believe lately, and I'm like, wow, how fun.
Yeah, the freedom.
Yeah.
The mental freedom to do that. That's so beautiful.
Totally.
Yeah, amazing.
Oh, I love that.
That'd be cool.
Okay, say tomorrow you find that you inherited $10,000.
Okay.
You are not allowed to invest it on anything practical.
Ooh.
What would you do with it? How would you spend it?
I would take the fam I would go rent like a chateau in Paris, like in the countryside. And I would hire someone to cook every single meal. And we would just like eat like crazy people and walk through the galleries and go to Montmartre and we would just travel the countryside together with not a care at all. We would spend every single dollar.
That sounds amazing. That totally sounds amazing. Okay. Tell me one or two, whatever you can think of, really weird things about you.
I'm a counter, like a crazy person. Like I will count like the lights on my ceiling or the shelves on the wall, and I will add them and I will delete them and I will subtract and rearrange them. I count like the holes on people's heads, like eyes, ears, nose, mouth. Maybe if you've got some earrings, I'll add those in. Like I'm a weird counter.
Interesting. That's so interesting. So little bit OCD, huh?
A little bit OCD. Like my husband.
Oh no, I think I lost you. Oh, are you back? Okay.
Yeah, I'm back.
So what were you saying? Your husband...
Well, we'll be watching TV and he'll just look at me and be like, "What are you counting right now?" And I'm like, "Oh, I didn't know it, but I was counting like all,
That's so funny.
The corners, and I'll count the corners in the room. Like, I mean, it's weird.
Oh, that's really interesting. Do you feel like, are you like stuck on even numbers? Are you an even number person?
I like to group things. So I could group them in groups of 3s and I'd be fine with that.
Oh yeah, 3s are good.
Yeah,
that's
like
so
30s.
Interesting. Fascinating, Lauren. All right.
I have a would you rather for you.
Oh, okay.
Okay. We just did this in the studio yesterday and I was like, this is a great would you rather. Would you rather be able to dance like Beyonce or sing like Beyonce? If you had to choose one.
Sing.
You'd sing.
Oh yeah. I don't know why I'm so sure about that, but because I really I can barely dance, but singing I'm okay at, so I feel like I could imagine if I could sing like Beyonce, that'd be the shit. Oh my God.
It would.
That'd be amazing.
So fun.
I would sing all the time.
Dancing. I mean, what a great party trick, you know?
That's true.
You probably have no more friends if you could dance like Beyonce at a party.
Oh my God. Yeah, she's amazing. I mean, can't even start with her. Okay. Can you remember the best advice you've ever gotten? Who gave it to you and what was it?
This is hard. Okay. I mean, I think over the last like year and a half of us like starting to go to church, I've gained a lot of wisdom. But I think one of the biggest is making sure your priorities are aligned in the way that I think was intended of, your faith, your husband, your kids, and then your job. And I think when your priorities are aligned like that, where your kids take priority over your work, your husband takes priority over your kids, and your faith takes priority over everything. I think living that way has changed everything for me.
Oh, that's awesome. Have you always been religious?
And I mean, I grew up, I guess, going to church on Christmas and Easter.
Okay, so not that. So actually, not that religious growing up.
Yeah, no, not at all. It really. It's been about 2 years since I feel like I have now developed a relationship with Jesus, and that has been a huge pivot, I think, for the business and family and marriage and just life in general.
That's wonderful. Do you think there was something specific that brought on like a search for
How much
something greater?
Yes,
well, I don't want to keep you. We're at the end, so.
Well, okay, I'll leave it with this. This is like my favorite. Basically, once James came onto the business with us, we were like rocking and rolling. I developed my own line of yarn, Canvas with Movement yarn that I was now using, and we had developed this whole system, and we had to invest in the business to do all these things.
Yeah.
And I had a collection that was launching on Saturday, but Thursday our electrical bill was due, and we had $0. We had $0 to pay our electric bill. And I had just worked my ass off for a month creating, a beautiful collection. I literally would stay up late. I was working super, super hard, exhausted. I was exhausting myself mentally and physically. And I was like, okay, we have $0 in electrical bill. Electricity is going to be turned off this afternoon if we don't pay this bill. So I just started hawking things on Facebook, like stroller for sale. And I remember getting the cash and shutting the front door and just collapsing on the ground and just sobbing. Like, I can't believe that this is my life, and James took the cash from my hand and literally just ran out the door to go pay the bill, came home. And in that time, I just sat there and sobbed and was like, I can't work any harder. I can't work any smarter. I can't work any longer. I can't be better, any more better than what I am. And I just realized like I have reached the end of myself. Like this is all I have. This is it. And it's never going to be good enough. And that night, randomly, some of our friends had invited us to come over for dinner, and they were like, do you guys go to church? And, they did the thing. And we were like, no, we do not, but they're like, oh, well, they have this great kids program and the kids will love it. And we were like, well, okay, that'd be good. Let's take the kids. So we go on Sunday, and it was like, everybody could have left the whole entire church, and it could have just been a message that was just for me. And it was about being anchored. What are you anchored to? What are you anchored to? And have you realized that you can effort the heck out of everything and it's never going to be enough? And I was just like, who told you?
Yeah.
And at that moment, it took a few more weeks of me just going and hearing this word and these sermons by the pastor who is now one of our best friends, and just being like, holy cow, this is what we're missing. We're missing faith, And so my mantra has just become faith over fear. No more am I going to be afraid that I'm not going to make enough money, or no more am I going to be afraid that I'm not going to get this tapestry created, or I'm not going to have enough followers, or I'm not going to get, it's just like I have faith, faith now that the Lord will provide, and he does in everything.
It's true, isn't it?
So true.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, I love that. I love that you asked. Thank you for asking that. That's so cool.
I've noticed that it's become a little bit more prominent in your life, and I think I've felt the same thing recently too. So I just wanted to talk real quickly about that.
Yeah. Oh, goodness.
Yeah. I grew up in a really religious, a very religious family, and I sort of just I left it in my 20s and 30s, and I'm not going back to church yet, but I have just a whole different perspective on it, and it's right now it's I'm working on it.
It's a baby little seed.
It's a baby little seed. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. I love that. That's so cool.
Yeah,
I love that. Well, I might say a little prayer about that then.
Oh, thanks, honey. Okay, tell me, where can people find you and your work if they want to find you?
Instagram is a great place to see what's going on every day. So it's Lauren Williams Art. And then on my website, laurenwilliamsart.com, is where all the pieces are for sale. We have a line of home pillows and throws that perfectly coordinate with every single piece of art that I put out, paintings or tapestries. So all of that is at laurenwilliamsart.com.
Oh my God, I wanted to ask you all about that too. I just don't want to take all your time. I know. I'm sorry. So yeah, you guys, Lauren has amazing pillows also, and throws, right?
Pillows and throws and things that really just feel like they coordinate with the tapestries. I wanted you to be able to buy art and not struggle with oh, I need a pillow. Is this going to match? And just be like, I do it to make sure it all coordinates, so you can't make a wrong decision in purchasing the pillows or the throws with the art.
I love that. And you know what? You've mastered that it's not too matchy-matchy. It looks amazing.
I feel like it's not too matchy-matchy because that I don't like. I don't like the matchy-matchy, but I want it to feel like the art is allowed to come off the wall into your home.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep. It's beautiful.
Thank you for noticing that.
You are like full-on goals person.
You know what? I've been watching you, and I wish we could talk more about what's going on in your world, because same.
Yeah.
Your marketing, by the way, and using other people's usage of your products is so good. I'm like,
thanks.
how do I do that? I think it's really inspiring, and I love it.
Yeah, I feel like, it started out as like a really nice way to honor other people too. So that's been really, it's been good.
And when it comes from there, it's when that's the intention, I feel like it's just destined to be good.
Yeah. I mean, I have a lot to say about it, but I know you have like a lot of work to do, so I don't want to keep you. But I just want to say thank you for coming on the podcast. It was like it's so great to hear your story, and I'm always pulling for you. So
thank you for interest and the support. I really appreciate it.
Definitely. All right, thanks, honey.
All right,
I'll talk to you soon.
Mwah.
Bye.
Bye.
Check the show notes of each episode to get the website and Instagram for each of the fiber artists I speak with. Be sure to give them a follow. And you can view video from this podcast on neromastudio.com/thefiberartistpodcast. If you enjoy the Fiber Artist Podcast, go to Apple Podcasts to subscribe, rate, and review. Thank you for listening.